When everything is marketing and marketing is everything, taglines and trends are just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. On the M Word, we're talking marketing and mission and the pursuit of what's personal. I'm your host, Jennifer Mulchandani, and you are listening to the M Word podcast presented by Arlington Strategy. Today I'm talking with Dr. Robert Yonover, a big wave surfer, rough water fisherman, PhD geochemist and volcanologist, and inventor. Rob's military-adopted sea rescue streamer has saved lives on land and water. Tune in to hear how Rob fared on Shark Tank, how he uses earned media to promote his safety product, and for a sneak peek into his next invention that aims to solve the world's water crisis. Welcome to the M Word, Rob. I'm so glad that you're talking with us today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And I'll try not to be super jealous that you are in sunny Hawaii and I'm in snowy Northern Virginia, but you know, someone has to live there, you said,
yes,
right?
So no judging. Yeah.
That's exactly right. I'm happy for you. I am excited to have a conversation because you, I think you might be the first inventor that we are talking to on the M Word podcast. And
Great.
you don't run across somebody who has created something. So why don't you set the stage for us? What do you do?
Okay. Well, I'm a scientist. I have a PhD in volcanology, geochemistry. I work on ocean floor lavas on the bottom of Galapagos. I went down in a submersible. And while I was inventing, I'm also a big wave surfer and I fish in rough water. So I was always on the edge of dying. And I invented this piece of survival gear to locate you when you're lost at sea. Instead of smoke, flares, or electronic signals, it's a simple, long, orange plastic tail that I patented struts in it. So it's like a centipede. It doesn't twist up. Very simple. And the military loved it. It's the only passive and discretionary signaling device. And they didn't love it right away. That's what's interesting about talking to you about marketing and, kind of knocking on doors, because I'm the king of knocking on doors. So I've invented this, and now it's saved a bunch of lives. It's used all over the world. It's on fighter jets. It's even on SpaceX under the ass of every astronaut. So it's very exciting to have such a low-tech piece of technology on such a high-tech.
You slipped that in there because your enunciation under the ass of every astronaut, which I thought was hilarious.
Yes, well, technically it's true. The ass of every astronaut. Yeah, it's a play on words, but it's true. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Well, let's back up a second because, as you say, you're a scientist. But
I'm an inventor. You give me credit for inventing. I am definitely an inventor, but I have a science background, and that's. Okay. I've been asked that before. People say, "Should we say you're an inventor?" And I like to say I'm a scientist and inventor because everyone's an inventor. Yeah. All people are inventors. So I like to get credit for the science part too.
Absolutely. But was this, you talk about like eureka moments of creation versus like you had identified a problem and you were setting out to solve a problem. How did you come about creating?
It's a good question. We were flying inter-island. A friend of mine was a pilot. And he rented a plane, like a Cessna that you rent, and it was very rough. The engine sounded very rough, like we were going to crash. And I looked down and I saw all that blue water. And then I thought about what they have. I'm always looking at contingencies. And in my mind, what's the worst case scenario, best case scenario? So if you go down, you have flares, shoot a flare in the sky, put smoke in the sky, or put sea dye in the water, or even tell people that you went down. The plane's going to sink, and then they'll never see us. And then I started reading articles. People that were lost at sea or on land, always say the same thing. You flew over me 3 times. Why didn't you see me? If they're lucky enough to live. A lot of people have died thinking that same thing. You keep flying over, you want to see me because your head is a speck. Your head's the size of a coconut. Have you ever seen a coconut from an airplane floating in the water?
So you're thinking all this while you're perhaps a troubled airplane. You're having some worries.
Right. And I'm thinking, how can I solve it? And then a couple of weeks later, I flew to Miami, where I grew up, and the Christo, the artist, had wrapped the Key Biscayne Islands in pink plastic. And when the plane banked a turn and looked at that pink, I'm like, oh my God, I can see that from a mile away. So that was the 1-2 eureka punch. And then the 3-part was figuring out how to make a long orange. Well, it was pink originally, but the Navy didn't like pink. But how to make a long orange piece of plastic not curl up and twist up in the water. And that's where the struts come in. So there's like spreader bars. So like it's like a centipede. It has structure. That's the strength of the patents. And really the big innovation was that, getting that to work.
And so this is now your full-time endeavor, running the business.
That was what I just described happened almost 40 years ago. I've been working Sea Rescue Streamer and it's been around for 30 years. And I'm the ultimate tortoise and the hare. You've heard that. I'm the ultimate tortoise. I'm just keep plugging along. I get knocked over. I turn back over. I keep going. The hare's laughing at me and going ahead, but I keep going. And yes, I've been doing this. I've invented a bunch of other things also. But as I always say to my proteges, just never quit your day job, because you got to have cash flow to be an inventor or start any business, right? Because it takes twice as long and twice as much money. So I got other grants for other inventions. I invented a inflatable paddleboard, pocket desalinator, pocket flotation device, video search and rescue, and all those got military funding, which helped fund me. And I also got a license deal for the streamer for 15 years. So I was getting royalties and getting paid to basically consult for the company and fly around the world and promote it. And that was really, really key, because we got some real money and expertise behind us. And we were able to get some big contracts with the military. And I'm all about PR and work in the media. So I've gotten this on Newsweek, Playboy, Sailing, Skin Diver, every magazine back in the magazine days. Wall Street, it's just so many. Discovery Channel, CNN, PBS. I've been on all these things, and it's great because it's free publicity. And not only that, it's third-party free publicity, which is way better than paying for an ad.
Yeah. So, I mean, the concept is, it's simple in the sense of like, you can tell people what it does and why it's so important and the potential impact and like, the 3 seconds that you get. It's so, given that level of simplicity, like what's been hard this part of your journey? It's like this thing just sells itself, right?
Well, in theory, when I explain it to people, first of all, there's the knowledge of it exists, but it's disrupting a very entrenched world. The flare people, the smoke people, the CDI people, the electronic device people, the Air Force, the Navies, all these people have their own ways of doing something. And then some volcanologist surfer from Hawaii comes up and tells them they should buy a little piece of plastic that didn't jive well. And one of the mistakes I made was going after flare, smoke, and CDI and talking about their limitations. And I think I created some enemies early on because they don't want to be told what to do and what they were doing was wrong. And I amended that to say, no, I want all those devices, but I want a streamer first and foremost because it's everlasting and it's redeployable. So you can go to sleep in your raft or go unconscious in the water. It's still signaling for you. And there's still resistance to it. I think people don't like a simple idea, whereas my mind is the simplest idea is the most elegant. That is the best way to solve a problem. And for me, in the marine or hiking world, things break all the time. Saltwater. I know you have some marine expertise, and you were on a boat for a while, so things don't always work. And the beauty of this thing: no batteries, chemicals, or electronics. Nothing to fail. The other big mistake I made was not making it fail or not making it wear out. You see, there's no repeatable business. I'm not a business person. I'm a scientist inventor. So my thought was invent it, just take that problem off the table forever. Guess what? That's not really good in business. In fact, this first streamer I built is still on my boat and it's 30 years old. So not really a good business model. And then when
it's like the only upside for plastics, right?
Exactly.
They don't biodegrade. Right. They don't biodegrade.
Exactly. And I go back to The Graduate, which is go into plastics. That was a joke in my family. And then even when I got it on Shark Tank, those guys couldn't see the big money from it. But I did. What happened was with my licensee, I invented a variation of it where it auto deploys for fighter jets because the pilots are usually injured or unconscious. So you ever eat rice paper candy, that plastic that dissolves in your mouth, or the dishwasher pouches, that plastic?
Right.
I found that 20 years ago and worked with some Air Force guys, and we rolled it up into string and tied a pouch with the strings when you hit the water, the strings dissolve, the pouch opens, and the streamer unfurls, and it triggered some flashing lights. It was unbelievable. You could see it from 5 miles away and thousands of feet. And ultimately, the Air Force said it's too visible. I said, I thought you wanted to be seen. That was in the days.
Well, not when you're in enemy territory,
right?
Though,
but that's
right?
why you could take it up if you're conscious. You could take it up. The original idea was infrared lights, not plain visible lights. But yes, it was a whole rigmarole. But it's still hard going up the big boy. Going against the big boys. And for me to have my technology that I invented, sitting on my lanai while my wife was saying, "Stop playing with that piece of plastic and get a real job," and now for it to be in 300 half billion-dollar aircraft is really it gives me a kick. And the best thing of all was saving the people that I'd saved. That I met a couple of them, and they thanked me, and that was great. And that's when I couldn't believe when I did the Shark Tank thing that those sharks didn't want to get that same feeling. It's like, forget the money. Someone said thank you for saving my life, and I'm like, you're welcome. That means a lot to me. But those guys were all about money, and that's okay.
So I guess, to your point of it's super durable, it's not necessarily consumable in the sense that it has to be replaced all the time, because hopefully people aren't going down and, the whole point is we want fewer accidents. So, so how do you grow from here? Like, what is it? Is it really just about new innovation, or are you trying to take variations of the theme and expand who it's? I mean, I feel like every Boy Scout troop in America should have
exactly
too, right?
The expansion is the market, and that's where the challenge is. And the challenge has always been people don't buy safety. It's a sad thing, but and that's why a lot of our success was in the military, where they have to be safe, and internationally, like Europe, especially, where they have much better safety conscious, where airbags and seatbelts came from, right? America, we're a bunch of cowboys. We're tough. Nothing's going to happen to us, which is all bullshit, but it happens to everyone. So the market is absolutely humongous. Everyone going out into nature, and the streamer is only as big as a cell phone. So it's like, there's no excuse why, it weighs 8 ounces, the little one. Yeah. So there's no use to have it. And hikers can get lost, boaters, fishing people, sailors, kayakers, skiers. It's a huge market. But how do you convert people to say it's going to happen to me? And that's where one of the targets lately has been, and I hate to say this for all my brethren on the male side, but women are smarter and they're more careful and they're more safety conscious. So one of the ad ideas or the PR was to target women and say, you should buy this for your loved one if you want them to come home. If you don't want them to come home, don't buy it for them. So, and even in our Amazon sales, I can see now that it's probably half and half women, even though they may not be using it as much, but they're buying it more. So that's one of the challenges, and it's still a challenge. And my strategy of late, once the license ended, and then the Shark Tank, those guys all loved it, thought it was a great technology, it's going to save lives, but no one invested. So I took stock in the guys that makes my surfboard on the North Shore said, "Do you know how to build them?" And I go, "Yeah, I invented how to build them." He goes, "Why don't you build them yourself and keep all the money?" I'm like, "Oh, that's a good idea." And then, so that's what I've done. And keeping lean and mean, I don't care so much how big the orders are, and they come and go. I get a big order, then it's slow, big, slow.
So you are now, Rob the manufacturer, not just the creator.
Yes, Sea Rescue Corporation. Well, I figured out that I have to sign off on everyone anyway for the military, certificate of conformance to make sure. And I don't want them going out the door unless I make sure they're right anyway. So, I don't make all the parts, but I do. It depends. I have my family's involved, and it expands and contracts depending on the size of the order. But I look at every one. I touch every one. I try to, because it's like my stamp of approval. And the analogy, it's kind of a long shot, but I fish a lot, and it takes so much to get into position to go fishing, especially here, 20 miles out, really rough water. You don't want your line to be tangled, or the lure to not be built right, or the lure not to be strong enough to catch a fish. That's why if someone uses this, it needs to work. It can't have shoddy workmanship. It can't be done enough overseas. And the other thing that helped is it's made in USA. So that helps with the military. It's not,
Right.
a lot of people in the early days, and even Shark Tank, those guys might have said, you got to bring your price to manufacture down. You should go to China or India and make this. I'm like, no, but then the military won't buy it. It's just, and then the workmanship, it's just, so that's the main focus. I'm still working on my other inventions always, and I write books and do a lot of crazy things.
I mean, you haven't used these words, but like you really strike me as a very mission driven, very values driven in how you've created, but not just your product, but how you position your product. So, does that show up in your marketing? You're talking about like the marketing as being sort of like where growth is going to come from, right?
It does, because it comes from me. But I also, again, in keeping with low overhead, my brother was in advertising years ago, and he taught me that there's editors sitting around wondering what to write about. And I've been over the years contacting editors. And in the old days, it was magazines and newspapers. Now it's media people. And I used to get, and I did it like fishing. I put 100 faxes in the old days of faxes. Remember faxes? Mm-hmm. You're too young, but we used to have these things.
I'm not too young. I think some of our listeners might not,
Okay, well, there was this machine called fax. And in Hawaii at 11 o'clock at night, it was cheaper to use a telephone or phone call long distance. So every night in my early years, I would send a one-page press release and fax it 100 times. Just keep punching the numbers in. It's like fishing. I put 100 lines out. I get a bite. The Miami Herald writes about it. I take that article and then I send it out again. And I'm a polite pain in the ass, meaning I'm going to keep calling you politely, but I'm going to be a pain in the ass. So you should tell your readers about this streamer. And it took me, for instance, 3 years to convince Outside Magazine to write about it. And then I got Men's Journal to write about it. And then the other thing about me that's probably good, I'm not a control freak. I mean, I am on certain things, but not when it comes to creativity and PR. So I let the editors, writers run with it. You run with it. I'm not writing it for you. If you want me to, I will. And for instance, Men's Journal came up with one of the greatest lines ever about the streamer, which is Gilligan's Island would have been one episode if they had a streamer, which was great. And for the young people, that was a group that got shipwrecked, and the whole show was they were shipwrecked on an island. And if they had the streamer, they would have found them the first day, and it wouldn't be a show. So letting people run with it. And also for me, we tried some little advertising here or there, and it doesn't really translate, again, because it's a safety product. It's not like selling cookies or, something you need. So it's a really tough sell. I hate to say it, but it's tough. It's tough. It shouldn't be, but it is.
A lot of brands, I feel like it's a common conversation I have with clients of every size and ilk, whether they're service-based, product-based, doesn't matter. Well, why can't we just do press? Let's just do media. Let's get free media. Let's just tell them how great we are. And,
right.
Congrats on your success, but I'm so curious what your hook was, because what media doesn't like to do is like, I want you to cover how great my product is. Right?
I know. Exactly.
That's called a commercial.
Exactly. And that's where my brother was very influential in that, because he really was an advertising guy, and he was a great word guy. And he actually came up with half of the name. It was C Locator at first, SEE Locator. I thought about the play on words, but he came up with the /rescue, C Rescue streamer. And he said, sell the benefit. And that's where I don't tell you how good it's going to be. I tell you what it's going to do. And even in the name is rescue. This is what it's going to rescue you. So that's one way. And I totally agree, because I get pitched all the time about people telling me how great their services are or products that I need to buy. I'm like, what's the benefit to me? You have to sell the benefit. And but it's still tough. People get it, but do they want to buy it? And it's like, again, the military has to. They have to protect their people. So that's the lower hanging fruit with the bigger contracts. And that's where I've been. The Amazon thing is through Shark Tank was a later stage thing. And we do okay there, but it's not like I couldn't live on that alone, consumers only. And I've learned that. And as much as I've tried different things over the years, I keep coming back to the same conclusion: is it's hard to sell safety to consumers, and the real home run thoughts in the early days was get a mandate, make it required on all life jackets, required on all flight vests, required on all life vests. And that's still what it should be, and it probably will be when I'm dead and gone. But that's okay. Like, but you have people like Canadian Air Force; they have it on all their flight jackets. Certain groups will do it, but to get the U.S. Coast Guard to do it is harder because the other thing they don't like is that it's a single company. So if they had mandated it, I would become an instant millionaire. It's like, okay, they didn't really want to do that. They didn't want to endorse a product, even though it's as much as a category. So it's been tough, and I'm open. I'm always open to anyone that can tell me or prove to me how to pitch it and how to sell it. And what I always do is I stop people in their tracks. All these PR agencies, all these, make my website better, do social media. I am always looking for that person that will do it on performance, right? And that's how I work. We have 50 reps all over the world. So, and the rep buys it and resells it, or they buy it and get a commission. But it's funny how people that are so confident about their service, whatever it may be, PR, social media, marketing, sales, they always run away when I say, okay, well, you'll make money when I make money. I don't have enough money to pay you. And this could be an entire episode. And it's interesting because I have this conversation, and probably a couple times a month, I'll have a sales lead or somebody ask me, like, would we work on performance? And there are definitely agencies out there that do it. The ones that do it, they want to run 100% of your brand management stuff. Exactly.
And that's where it falls down, is like,
yeah, that's true.
Because marketing is, it's a sales funnel, it's awareness, it's brand building, it's product placement, it's positioning, it's all of those really, really important things. And marketing can get you into the consideration set, and then sales tactics get people to convert. And if a vendor is not going to be able to influence all of those points, there's too much opportunity for failure that they can't control.
Right. Plus you can't track it. That's the bigger issue.
Yeah.
So people always want exclusives, but that exclusive are dangerous because, especially like in the military, they want the whole country. That's fine, but if I do that and they're credible, I give them a shorter time fuse, like 6 months or a year, and that's it. Because they can just sit back and do nothing, and then something comes from one of my actions, they get the credit. And that's okay. There's still stuff they have to do. But the flip side is, if you started marketing for me, how do I differentiate what came from you and what came from me or someone else? And that's where it kind of all falls apart. So
yeah.
And then you talk about minimum advertised price, MAPS, right? That's a term I've learned in the last 10 years, which is you don't let your reps undercut your price, especially like Amazon. And Amazon, after Shark Tank, the demand isn't great, let's say, but people started undercutting, and they said, we're not going to work for you. I have a rep from Amazon. They handle all my Amazon, but I don't let anyone advertise a price below retail at this point.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
Because otherwise they'll just kill you, because people are smart shoppers. They'll go online, 95, 95, 72. I'll buy the 72 one. Who is that? Right. But on a personal level, if you know boating groups, flying groups directly, we can definitely undercut the $95 price point if there's a group, or like Boy Scouts, like you mentioned. So there's a lot of creative ways to do it. And I'm open to all of it because I'm a creative guy and I like creativity on all ends of this thing. So
yeah. So let me ask, at what point did you stop getting in trouble for playing with plastic on the lanai?
Yeah, well, my late wife, she ate those words ultimately, and then she was proud of me. But it was a lot of perseverance, and even a couple of weeks after that, this was like 30, 40 years ago, we went on a boat with some friends, and everyone was like, you're an idiot. You need to get a job. You have a PhD. Why are you playing with this piece of plastic? I'm like, no, I'm going to show you what it does. And I threw it out on the back of the boat, and I just threw it out, not unfurled it slowly. And then the current took it out, and it spun out perfectly and laid flat. And it was one of the happiest days of my life. It was like the birth of my child. And so it was just, my strategy is, and I used to have this little note on my fridge back in college: those who can do, those who can't talk. Okay. So I just keep doing. And at some point my wife said, yeah, okay, well, she wasn't around to see Shark Tank, unfortunately, but she saw the military, the approvals, the license deal, and also all these other inventions that I got funded for. And ultimately, unfortunately, she got MS. So she was in a wheelchair for 19 years. So I took care of her, and she was thanking me then, because if I hadn't been an over the top inventor, I wouldn't have been flexible enough to take care of her and raise kids. So that all worked out. But yeah, that was tough for her, because people prejudge, because you have a PhD, you're supposed to do X, or because you need the white picket fence. And here in Hawaii, it's really tough, because buying a house, especially nowadays, and if you go back to your family's houses that are bigger on the mainland because your dollar goes more, it's just a different mindset. And my mindset was never about material things. So we used to have good battles about that. But
yeah. So what's next for you?
Well, my greatest invention of all, I believe, I'm still working on, it's been years, I can't get it to work perfectly, unfortunately, is a pocket desalinator. Converts salt water to fresh water just by laying it in the sun. And it's not only good for survival, but developing nations, the future wars aren't going to be fought over oil. They're going to be fought over water, drinking water. Mm-hmm. So, you go to parts of Africa where they don't have any water, but there's the ocean or sea right there. You could use this device, and all of it, again, it's as simple as a streamer. It's 2 bags, 1 bag inside the other. The inner bag has a window of Gore-Tex, which are tiny little holes. That's why it's a good raincoat material. The rain bounces off the Gore-Tex, but air goes in and out, so it breathes. I'm going to put salt water in there. The sun heats it, it evaporates. Only the pure water vapor goes through. The salt crystals get stuck, and then you can sip the water that condenses on the inside of the outer bag. It's so simple. And some of my new military contacts, we're talking about teaming up. I used to be really paranoid, not paranoid, but more selfish and wanting to do everything. And now I realize, I'm running out of time, because it takes me so much time to run the streamer thing that the desalinator may never get launched, or my pocket float, or anything. So that's what I'm doing. And I still write a lot. I got a bunch of books and kids' books. I do a lot of outreach. I like to get kids off their phones. I'm a big proponent of getting rid of smartphones. And and if you check the record, when Apple the first iPhone came out, and everyone said how great it was, what was it, 10 years ago? I said, these are horrible. And everyone thought I was saying that just to get a reaction. But I truly believe it, and it's true now more than ever. And, it's just the anti-imagination creativity device. It's the anti-hard work device. It's the ultimate, let's just get fatter and lazier. And I'm really disillusioned by not only how that's captured young people's minds, but how it's kind of, even the inventing world, it's kind of ruined that, because that's all people want to do is invent those kinds of things that help us get fatter and lazier. And I'm not about that.
Right. But I mean, I think what's so poignant with that perspective is like your product. AI can't find you in the ocean, and your phone isn't going to find you in the ocean. And it's like, it comes back to good old human ingenuity, which is fantastic.
Right. Go on.
Go ahead.
I would say that help. That's why when I encounter young people or old people, I try to get them in the water and tell them I'm going to ruin their phone. That's how I get them to lose their phones. And now they work underwater, which is unfortunate, because
take your TikTok everywhere.
Yeah.
To come to a close, Rob, I like to do a fun rapid fire. And you did not want to know what these questions were ahead of time, which props to you.
Yeah, I like virgin audience and virgin questions, and be put on the spot. Right. I know it's a rarity, and I may screw it up, but I don't care.
It's
going to be organic either way. This will not this will not be a canned response.
Exactly. Do you have a favorite social media?
I'd still say Facebook, because it still can link to longer things you can read and watch. I like Instagram too, but it's too short, the attention span. And the whole point of social media, people say how bad it is. It's bad if you have shitty friends. If you have brilliant people, it's true. If I have brilliant
Okay.
people or creative people
Love that.
giving me links that are really good to read about, I've been on board from the beginning. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, I'm not on TikTok, but someone did post a Shark Tank thing on TikTok and it got 15 million hits. And so I was briefly on TikTok, but
Okay.
it's overwhelming.
All right. Next question. Taylor Swift, yay, nay, or don't care?
I like her. I'm really a music guy, but she's not my style, but I love her creativity and her, basically, I did finally say, look, I'll just talk about her songs. I guess I've heard a couple of them. So I watched a YouTube video of her playing an acoustic guitar and she's good, but I'm not listening to it. But I do give her huge credit for creativity, marketing, PR. She's brilliant. So
Yeah.
I mean, I love her marketing. I'm definitely, I'm a much hard rock guy. I grew up with a kid that became a rock star. Music's been driving my life. And those two movies out right now were made for me, the Dylan movie and the Zeppelin movie. So I highly recommend both to the fans. To the uninitiated, you'll probably hate both of them.
There you go. Is there a book you always recommend?
Absolutely. I mean, there's 100 books. I mean, that's the other problem with those phones. No one reads. The one book that I love as a business thing, and you probably have never heard this one, called Thick Face, Black Heart. And this woman, yeah, I'm sure. And this was a life-changing thing for me 20, 30 years ago. And it's based on The Art of War, Sun Tzu. And this woman, Amy Chu, I think her name is, wrote a business book based on the art of warfare. And it just, the perspective of, well, one of the takeaways is embrace your perceived negativity. So if you're a surfer that invents crazy things, embrace that. That's what you're meant to do. If you like videos, become a video reviewer. There's that, all these little things like that were in there, but they're based on the art of war. And thick face means you don't listen to people telling you can't do it. Get a real job. Black heart means you go for the win. And as in war, you kill someone if you have to. But the highest levels of victory are by outsmarting or just winning, without killing. And that's where I've tried to do with the streamer. Yes, I work with the military. I don't kill anyone. I save people. So to me, that's the highest level. And then, of course, I love like Anna Karenina. I love the classics. I didn't read that much as a kid, but I took an English literature class in high school and it blew my mind. And instead of reading a million books, I've read all the classics. And that's what I really push for people. Because if it lasts 100 years, there's a reason. Yeah. Chekhov, Dostoevsky, all that stuff. I love Hemingway, Faulkner. I love that stuff. And it holds up. And that's why that's the stuff. If I get a chance to read, I read the classics.
That's fantastic. My last question for you, Rob, and this is poignant for me because you are in Hawaii.
Yes.
Where's your next vacation if you could pick?
Well, I'm a volcanologist, so I go and I love nature. So I don't go where humans are or what humans have done. I did go to Italy. I lived in Italy for a college exchange program in Florence, which blew my mind. Part of my success was from that half a year. But in general, and because of the creativity that was going on with the Renaissance, I love that. But in general, I want to see nature at its finest. So I just went volcanoes. First of all, I was just in Iceland for an active volcano. And then I went to India a couple of years ago to see tigers. I've gone to Africa to see lions. So I'm into the nature trips because I don't, when I see a church in Italy or some mausoleum, something, it just reminds me of all the slaves that were beat to build that. It bothers me. When there's these massive, any of them, Machu Picchu, any of these great shrines are done by poor people that are beat down or scared by religion or something. So I'm not really a fan. I mean, I observe it and I admire it, but I'm not really going
I
there.
hear you.
Yeah, so I'm going deep in nature. So
that's fantastic. Well, I highly recommend if you haven't gone to Nicaragua. I've been there to see an active volcano myself, and that was unreal.
No, that's great. I've been to Costa Rica, but that's close. But Nicaragua's a good idea. It was active while you were there?
Yes.
Oh, really? That's great.
Yes, in fact, there were multiple days that the parks were closed because
good.
of too much activity.
Oh, that sounds good. All right,
Yeah.
I'll check that out. I'll put that on my list. I'm trying to see all the great volcanoes. I've been all over New Zealand and Indonesia, Alaska. And I love to travel.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Well,
Thanks.
Rob, this has been a lot of fun, and
Same here. Thank you.
super enlightening. And I, just as somebody who appreciates humanity, to know that there's folks like yourself who are solving, the most basic problems of trying to keep people alive. So thank you for joining us on the M Word and sharing your business story with us.
My pleasure.
You take care.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to The M Word. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Subscribe and never miss a podcast. Visit arlingtonstrategy.com for more. The M Word is an Arlington Strategy production hosted by Jennifer Mulchandani. Our theme music is by Mucci. Graphic design by Kayla Fagan and Emily Rare. Sound engineering and editing by Ben Mulchandani.